Welcome to V is for Victory, a podcast about how small businesses overcome big battles. I'm your host, Jill Miller of Vera Creative, a boutique marketing firm in the Chicagoland area where I'm also a part-time professor of an advertising course. Join me as I talk with entrepreneurs about the challenges they face as well as their strategies for success. All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning into another episode of V is for Victory. Before we get started, I just want to remind you, if you're getting anything of value from these podcasts, to please share them, download them, like, subscribe, leave a comment, leave a review. Anything is helpful. Lets me know that I'm doing okay. So today I have a repeat guest on, Dan Petersen of Flip Switch Media. Dan, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Oh, good. So I have to confess, since our last meeting, I still hate social media. I've probably said it in almost every episode that I've recorded since then.
That's okay.
Yeah,
That's okay.
Thanks for being supportive. I'm glad there's people out there like you who are still passionate about it, I think, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's funny because the last time we spoke, you called it. You said that Instagram was going to do away with the likes, like showing how many likes a post has, and they definitely have done that. So yeah, I'm hoping you can look into your crystal ball and predict more future goodness for us.
They are moving away from that all the time. They're trying to do different things all the time. So there's always changes being made, and there are some algorithm things that are changing as the time that we're recording this here in October of 22. There are a lot of things that are going to be changing, I think, for 23. So I encourage people to listen to podcasts like yours, follow things on social, like Instagram itself, actually watching what they're doing, not just the experts like myself that talk about it, but the actual platforms themselves will give you everything you really need to know. So, but yeah, there's always something changing.
That keeps us on our toes, right?
That's right.
So I had a very specific question from one of my listeners. I always put it out there that people can ask me questions that they want to learn about or guests that they want me to have on. And so the question was regarding Facebook advertising, and more specifically, how to start set up a funnel, like an ad funnel. And so I thought, well, who better to bring on than you? My go-to guy. So yeah. So anyways, I guess as with any topic in marketing or business, you can go very high level and then you can fine tune it. So take us to the 50,000 foot view of funneling. Let us know, define it, and then give us your gold tips, I guess.
Sure. So you just hit it on the head. It all comes down to reverse engineering what you're trying to do. And this is with any type of advertising or marketing. You really have to look at the goal of what you're trying to accomplish first, and then work your way backward from there. So for this person, this listener, without seeing into her actual situation and knowing exactly what she's trying to do or what type of business she's in, I can still speak to some generalities that would apply to anybody. But for example, let's say she is in retail sales. So
bingo. See, you do have a crystal ball.
Is that what she's yeah, so she would need to first of all make sure her website is top notch. And when I say top notch, I don't mean you really have to go out and spend $50,000 on a website, but you definitely need one that looks the part, feels the part, is easy to navigate, has a good checkout function, e-commerce function, and is able to be accessed through both desktop and mobile with zero issues, and make sure that the overall look and feel of the site works well. That's the key, first and foremost, because if anybody gets to that website and it's not what they expect to see, they're out of there. Let's say that the website looks great, everything's going well. The next step is, what type of messaging is she putting out for the products that she's trying to sell? And does that messaging lead back to those products themselves? For example, let's say she was trying to sell candles, and She talked a lot on social media about the benefit of aromatherapy and all of this type of stuff, and attracted that group to that website to buy a special type of candle that she sells. That would be that type of pathway that we would recommend from a marketing standpoint to have, is to not just always be selling, of course, but use the social media to attract that viewership and that type of customer that she would look for, so that when they get to the site, they're already half in the bag. They're already expecting to see what they get there to see. They know what they're there for, and the conversion rate is going to be a lot higher. On the flip side of that coin, if she's putting out content that is very hodgepodge, hit or miss, has no type of consistency to it, especially from a brand messaging standpoint, then what's going to happen is she's going to get potentially more people to the site, but fewer conversions, because it's not going to be the right customer when they get there. They're just landing on the site and seeing it and bouncing probably within a couple seconds. Now, how does that play into the funnel situation? Well, if let's say she's running Google ads, or is running some type of top of funnel advertising out there, and we'll talk about Facebook ads in a minute, but let's say she was doing Google advertising, Google AdWords, things like that, or pay-per-click, and she was trying to attract a certain demographic or a certain searcher on Google to her website. Well, if same thing, if the messaging isn't correct and the ads aren't done properly, and then they get to the website, whether it looks good or not, they're out of there. They're going to bounce. So
then that plays into your success with Google as well, correct?
Well,
so now
exactly.
Google looks at your ad as irrelevant for that search term and won't
Could
show
be.
it.
Yep,
Yeah.
very well could be. And it's going to waste a lot of money, that's for sure. Google ads are expensive to begin with.
Yes, so expensive. I think people underestimate that. And I know people are like, oh, I'll throw $20 a week at it. That is the biggest waste of $20. Because you have to have a pretty sizable budget to even be successful.
Hundreds of dollars a week would be a good starting point. So, going back to this situation with your listener, the Facebook ad situation is similar to what I just described with Google. It all comes down to targeting and reverse engineering your audience and knowing who you're going after. So if you're trying to reach 35 to 55-year-old women who live within 10 minutes of your retail location, maybe you have a brick and mortar store and online, and you're trying to get people in the door, but you're also trying to get them to your website to purchase. It all comes down to who you're trying to reach and how much money you have to reach them, of course. There's a lot of factors that go into it. But to play out this example that we're in right now, let's say she's trying to get 1,000 qualified people a month to her website. And that, when I say qualified, I mean people that are potential buyers that are actually there for what she sells. Then she needs to look at her overall audience, meaning where is she targeting, who is she targeting, and really narrow that down. And the beautiful thing about Facebook, for those listening right now that don't know this, it has a lot of built-in targeting capability that even we're still finding new changes and new things that are being added. So if she's trying to reach that 35 to 50-year-old female, let's say, that lives within 10 miles of her brick and mortar store, and she has a higher end product that has an audience that would need to have 100, 150, 200,000 a year in, household income, for example, to be really the type of person that purchases this high end item or whatever. You can target that, you can dial that down. So we can say, okay, we want 35 to 50-year-old women that live within 10 miles that make this much income. Maybe they have kids, maybe they don't. Maybe they drive a certain type of car. Maybe they've shopped for other similar items. Maybe they've shopped for the exact same item under different, companies like Pure One Imports or some other fancy furniture place, or you can really get in there and be specific with it. And by doing that, your dollars stretch a lot farther. So in her case, if she's going to do this and spend that money, it's best to figure out exactly who your audience is, what your budget is, and then work within Facebook's parameters to hit that person 5 to 7 times with those ads.
So let me jump in here. I think what
Mhm.
I see a lot of times with small business owners, and you can let me know if this is what you come into, is they actually have no idea and they're not capturing data on their customer. They might know a little bit about them because they come in contact with them while they're in the store or have conversations online with them, but when it comes down to that real nitty gritty, they have no idea. And there's so many ways that business owners, because they get busy, I'm not saying this is I'm not shaming them or anything, but they get busy or they don't think to do these things, but capturing data on who's buying is so incredibly important. Are there any tools that you recommend for your clients to use if they haven't been able to capture that data so far?
Well, so there's a couple different elements to that. If it's a brick and mortar type of store, and maybe they're not even selling online, maybe they're just trying to use Facebook to get people to walk into their actual store. In that case, there's two parts to it. There's the physicality of it, right? You're in the store every day, you watch with your eyes, listen with your ears, look at past history of who you know as the business owner is coming into your store. So if you know that in this case, it's 35 to 50-year-old women that predominantly shop at your store because you sell XYZ widgets, well, that tells you right there that when you go on the digital side to market, you know that you're trying to reach that same demographic, that same 35 to 50-year-old group. If you don't have that type of eyes and ears capability, maybe you're strictly e-commerce, so you don't have a store where you can see people walking in, then it comes down to really utilizing Google Analytics and knowing your customer on that end. So getting into the back end on Google Analytics on your website, looking at how many people are coming, where they're coming from, how long they're spending on each page, which pages they're going to in the first place, and then click-through rates and purchase rates and all of that, and capturing that data through Google itself can be a huge help for any business owner. And I highly recommend, regardless of your business, if your website plays any part in your business at all, which 99% of businesses it should, I highly recommend going in on Google Analytics and looking at that on a regular basis, like monthly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can attest to the fact that Google Analytics is still fairly easy to decipher.
Mm-hmm.
I don't do a lot of PPC. I don't do a lot of online advertising. I leave that to the experts like you. But even Google Analytics, I can make a whole heck of a lot of a sense out of. And even when they make changes, I can keep up with the changes because that's half the battle with Google AdWords. That interface scares the heck out of me. I do not like looking at it, but yeah, Google Analytics is key. I tell my customers that, and again, a lot of them don't even know if they have it installed on their site or
Right.
they don't know, and it's I don't know, it's frustrating for me because it is very telling. It's a great tool, but yeah, definitely business owners out there, if you're listening, you've got to be looking at that Google Analytic. And it can tell you so much, and like you were saying, it helps you allocate your money more wisely.
Sure.
So yeah, I like that you brought that up. I also think like even implementing things like loyalty and rewards and stuff like that can help capture consumer data. If you have an email marketing list, you can capture
Mm-hmm.
data that way. So there are other marketing channels that help you capture the data. It's just kind of being creative and thinking, how do I get this person's email? How do I figure out what age bracket they fall into, right? Like when's their
Right.
birthday, by doing something like that, and then sending them a, happy birthday, here's 10% off your purchase email. That right there is going to tell you how old everybody is. So there's some strategic and kind of creative ways that you can still capture data outside of Google Analytics, which obviously is going to be your number one bet. But yeah, so thank you for bringing that up. Thank you for sharing that, because I definitely agree. And what I love about these conversations too is a lot of times you really want to be able to give the business owner the very specific answer to the question they're asking. But like you said in the beginning of the show, okay, we got to back up. How's your website?
Right.
How's your Google Analytics? What? Oh, you don't know? You think your website's good? Have you had it beta tested? Have you asked your consumers? Have you looked at your bounce rate?
Right.
So yeah, so these are all super important things that we got to remember to do. We can't put the cart before the horse.
Well, and that's it right there. We see a lot of customers that have the proverbial cart before the horse. They have a website that hasn't been changed in 5-10 years, or it's new and it still looks like it hasn't been changed in 5 to 10 years. We get that a lot too. Somebody's nephew did it in their basement for $100 and it looks like crap.
I call
And
that a Randy site. I had a client that insisted that their web guy was amazing and his name was Randy. And I mean, these were the first ever sites built is what he was producing, I'm pretty sure. And this was not that long ago. So
wow.
kind of a little inside joke over here. If you're a creative, we call it a Randy.
Yeah, that's funny. Well, and it's true though. There's a lot, we see it a lot. We've sent, just in the last few months, probably half a dozen websites to our web designer, because there's so many out there that still aren't updated. They're not kept up even when they're built. And it's really tough. And for all you listeners, here's a key thing. If you're a business owner, you need to have outside eyes on your business.
Thank you.
Everybody's too involved in their own business to see what's going on. And it's everybody. It's myself, it's you, Jill, it's everybody.
Yep.
And to have an outside set of eyes come in and say, hey, like your website's not working, or you click on this and it does this, or it doesn't do this, or it looks a certain way, or, hey, I noticed when I was trying to tag you on Facebook that, or on Instagram, that your page is named something totally different than Facebook.
Yeah.
And this is something we're dealing with right now. You talk about like branding and brand messaging from the top of a potential funnel, where you're trying to capture leads. It comes down to brand messaging first and foremost, because if somebody looks at you and they can't tell it's your company, that's a problem. And we're seeing a lot of this right now. And I actually just a couple days before we're talking right now, I put out a message about this. And it is a bit of not just a personal pet peeve, but it's a branding issue. And here's what it is. It's businesses that don't match their brand to look and feel and seem the same across all platforms.
Yep.
So on Facebook, they have a page name that's, let's say, XYZ store, and that is what they are. And their logo is in their profile picture and it looks great. Then you go to Instagram and it's a picture of their dog or a product in their store or their headshot or something like that. And that's what they use on Instagram. And they call their page something totally different. And you can't match the two. So if you're going to tag it, or if somebody's going to search for you, or they're trying to share it, or anything that benefits your brand, if you're not matching apples to apples, it's terrible. I'm just going to say it. It's terrible.
100%.
And it's a huge pet peeve of mine.
You're right. And this is why I love getting in with business owners on the ground level. It's like, hire somebody like me, because we think about these things. We know the importance of these things. And I get that you don't have time to sit there and search for the perfect name and that matches your business name or how to put, but we do. We have,
right. That's what we do.
Or I do. I that's what I love. And so, you're 100% right. The brand consistency has to be there. The messaging consistency has to be there. But, it gets challenging because what name isn't taken? What username isn't taken? And so people kind of just have to get creative, but they don't realize that in that they're losing a lot down the road in terms of, like you said, conversion, because people are just going to get there and be confused. And the last thing you want to do is confuse somebody. Confused people don't act. They don't purchase. They just leave. So, and they may not ever return.
Well, and we see a lot of customers, not even customers, just a lot of brands out there that their name isn't original enough to avoid confusion.
Yep.
But they don't do themselves any favors by trying to mitigate that and limit it. So, for example, this just happened the other day. We were looking around at a brand. I won't say who they are, but there are, I don't even know. I stopped at like 150, scrolling through Instagram, looking. 150 accounts is where I stopped of the same name in the same industry. So it's not even like it's something across 10 different industries and there's 10 in each one. This is 100, at least 100 out of the 150 that were in the same industry as this customer or this company. So then what happens is somebody goes to tag you and they're like, well, which one is it? And 99% of them didn't have a logo for their profile picture. So you can't even tell what their product is, who the company is, and so on. And that's just one of a million. And so we tell people to make sure that they watch that.
And here's another issue that could pop up for you in that sense. I was just in a Facebook group actually educating people a little bit on my experience with the trademark process. Because if your brand name is close to somebody else and somebody else trademarks, you could end up having to change that if they came after you with a cease and desist, or if somebody got really big all of a sudden and wanted to have legal rights to that name.
Right.
And there's a couple things you can do. I mean, you could potentially prove that you used that name longer, and then actually send them a cease and desist back and kind of battle it out. But who wants to pay all those legal fees?
Right.
So there's legal implications to it too. And that's another thing. I use tools. I put in business names when I'm branding them into a website that searches a database of trademarks. And it tells me if that name is in use, what industry it's in use for, if the trademark is active, if it's expired, if it's renewing. And so those are all really important things to think about. And I'm super excited because coming up on my podcast, I'm actually going to be interviewing a lawyer who focuses on helping small business owners avoid common legal mistakes. And I think this could potentially be one of the things that he helps us dive deeper on. But so yeah, it's one thing like, oh, someone can't tag me. Maybe the business owner doesn't care. But when you're getting sued, you might care.
Yeah, that's right. That's a little more serious.
Yeah, tad. So, okay, so we're a little off track, but all good, juicy information. Us marketing
good stuff.
Love it.
Right. Well, and hopefully it benefits some people listening that, takes their brain in a different direction. Maybe when they're done listening to this, they go take some action. So
that's the thing too. Like I've been trying to kind of narrow down what it is that I really do for my clients and how I can better sell myself. And it's very hard. Like I keep saying, they hire me, like once they get to realize how my brain works, that's really what they're paying me for, is like this, the way that my brain works. But that's really hard to hire somebody or to say, hey, hire me because I think differently. Right. You're hiring me for my brain, for my strategy, for my brainstorming ability, for my out of the box thinking. People aren't really going to fork over a lot of money and sign a year-long contract just because you told them you have a brain. So so it's kind of funny, but like that is, you totally spoke to it when you were talking about you're too close to your brand to see. This is something, listeners, I've been saying since day one on my podcast for, going on 3 years now. And you're too close to it. And having that outside perspective is really, really important. And I know for a fact, I just got a text the other day from a client that was like, wow, Miss Jill, he's from Texas, so he's calls me Miss Jill and ma'am.
He's polite.
Yes, it's adorable. And I didn't think about that. I don't know why I didn't think about that. And that he was just kind of blown away, like, wow, that's so simple, but yet I didn't think about that. It's like, right. Exactly, because you're too close to it. And I've told the story of how I couldn't rebrand my podcast. I was having the hardest time. I actually farmed that project out to students that I had at the time. And they came up with a brilliant name. They came up with V is for victory. And, it ties in with my tagline, victory for brands, and it's perfect. But I was just spinning my wheels because I was way too close to see it. So anyways, again, I digress. But okay, so we were talking about funnels, I guess.
Yeah, funnels. We put the fun in funnels, right?
I was so just gonna say that. Thank you for doing the lame joke for me.
I got dad jokes for days. With 3 daughters, I got all the dad jokes. So one other thing I want to mention with this whole funnel conversation is when you have a physical product, it's somewhat easier to know your audience. It's easier to see that whole process through because you, for example, I live in Frankfort, Illinois, and I literally know the stores here. I know the customers that would, if I owned one of those brick and mortars, I would know the people coming in. I would know their families potentially. And you build a real relationship with real people in real life, quote unquote, real life, the non-digital side.
Right.
Take that the other direction. And if you're only e-commerce, or if you're heavy into e-commerce, and maybe you've got a brand, a product that is potentially sold nationally or globally, and there's no limitation to who you can sell it to. It's just a shipping issue, if anything. But let's say you've got that product and you're trying to figure out where to spend your money, because it's hard to it's hard to break it down and say, okay, well, I can sell to 300 million people. How do I reach a tiny percent of that that's going to buy from me? So this is where you can avoid a lot of the ad spend. And I'm not saying you shouldn't be running ads, because you absolutely should, but you can avoid going or feeling like you only have ads to work for you, and instead go the organic route and build community around your brand, build conversations, and most importantly, storytell. So as you get your storytelling system in place and you build the why behind the what of what you're selling, and you teach people how it can benefit them, show testimonials of how people have enjoyed the product or the service. It doesn't matter what it is. It can be candles, it can be a therapy session, it can be online accounting or tax services, it can be anything. But getting the storytelling aspect where people are listening to their peers through testimonials say why your product or service is better is a key element to this. And creating content at scale is the key to the whole game. So starting a YouTube channel, for example, that you educate people with, if you're that tax person or that accountant, or even if you are selling candles or some other physical product, and you can talk about how to maybe use them in home decor or different scents and different things, all kinds of different stories you can tell around those products, and you create that social media branding and marketing at scale, and then that does the selling for you instead of just putting out sales ads saying, hey, come buy this product from me.
Yeah, goes back to the know, like, and trust factor. People buy from people they know, like, and trust, and they're gonna know you through your consistency, and they're gonna like you through your messaging, and they're gonna trust you through what you've educated them with, and what other people are saying about you, because people do put a lot of stock in those testimonials and online reviews.
Oh, for
Very,
sure.
very
I think
important.
I think it's 45% of people, something like that, maybe 49% make their buying decisions online based on what their friends or other people have said. I mean, that's half.
Yeah, in one way or another, so much of, for small business owners, so much of it comes down to some type of referral, whether
Right.
that's an online referral or an in-person referral. So
Yep.
every relationship is important. Yeah, and oh man, there's so much we could get into. I'm gonna stop. Funneling. Let's go back to funneling.
So hopefully that kind of answers some of those questions for your listener that was wondering, about the types of funnels. I mean, really that word gets thrown around a lot, but here's what it comes down to. There's pretty much two types. There's the social media style, where you're putting out the branding, the messaging, the storytelling, and you're leading people down a path to an end point, where that could be a website where they click on and sign up for a newsletter and then continue through the funnel process, or it could be where they go all the way and get to the point of sale and purchase from you. And then there's the Google side of things, where you're really heavily reliant on search engine optimization and people searching for your website and finding your website and going down that path. And in that case, it's even more critical that your website looks and operates well, because you don't have the benefit of storytelling in that case. People haven't necessarily followed you down the whole social media storytelling path. They've seen you or heard about you, or are just generally searching for what you sell or what you offer, and they're Googling it and they're coming across your website and they're going to it, and they don't know anything about you. And so here they are, they're on your website, and it doesn't look or operate correctly. and they're out of there. So the importance of having a website that really, really works for you on all fronts is the key to the whole funnel game, assuming that that's part of your sales process, which I can't imagine anybody who it wouldn't be.
Right, correct. Well, and there's also a very delicate balance too, though, to your funnel, that it's not so long that people never get to the point of sale. So
Yes.
that's the other thing. I've been trying to tell some of my retail clients, like, figure out how you can basically get that item in the shopping cart for them. So
Right.
that by the time that they click, they literally come to a shopping cart page, a checkout page. It's
Right.
almost like you want to minimize those clicks to the point of sale when you're really, if that's your goal, the conversion is your goal. How do you help your customers balance that?
Again, it goes back to, for a certain degree, storytelling. It goes back to getting them to want to buy it before you're trying to sell it to them. Make people, like you said, buy from people that they like, know, and trust. Well, what do they trust about you that's getting them to buy from you in the first place? Build upon that. And then when they get to the shopping cart, it's a done deal and your bounce rate in the shopping cart department goes away. But going from a technical standpoint, yeah, sometimes it's quick and easy to get them in the shopping cart and they still leave because the shopping checkout process looks archaic, which leads to lack of trust, or it looks and feels different than what they're used to because everybody shops
Shady.
Online. Right. Yeah. It has a shady look and feel to it. Like, this can't be legit. Right.
Yeah.
And it's all subconscious, but it's a thing. It's a big thing. And
For sure.
So working with experts and people like your company, my company, our web partner, like having that outside set of eyes and also that expertise that can help you with this stuff is critical. Don't do it on your own. Websites aren't that expensive and they can really, really work so many wonders for your business that you don't even realize right now. And it pains me to see people try to build a $300 Wix website or something like that, or a free one, and not have the thing work for them.
Yeah.
For lack of a better way to put it.
Right. Spot on. I love that.
When they could just spend a couple $1,000s and it could be a killer website that works for them for, the next 5 years with minimal updating.
Right. Yep. Yeah. And I think, that's the biggest thing too, as a small business owner, right out of the gate. A lot of people don't realize the capital it takes to get started, and they have to start cutting corners, and everybody knows somebody who can do something for them at a service trade, for a massage. Like, oh, I got my website and I got a massage. Like, oh, that's a real even trade. Good job. You just,
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, you just lost out on like $3,000. But yeah, so what was that? Oh, yeah. Okay. So thank you for that. Thank you for that whole talk about ad funneling. Take me through a little bit what you are seeing right now. I'm seeing, in terms of the Facebook algorithm, is brutal for a small business page. I know people that aren't even posting on their business page anymore. They're posting on their personal because it's just casting a much farther reach. Or they're doing groups and trying to funnel people into groups. But talk to me about, just a little bit briefly, because I know we're running out of time, but talk to me a little bit about where you see Facebook going, where it is now and where you see it going in the next few months or year here.
So I'll speak to that and the overall picture of social media and algorithms and the whole thing. So first and foremost, to answer your question, I guess, Facebook is one of many platforms, obviously, out there. And it is arguably the oldest of sorts. It's, the kind of granddad of them all, right?
Yeah, right. Came after MySpace.
Yeah. Well, here's the problem, is that people have not adapted to the platform, and they expect the platform to work for them and to change for them, but they're not changing to match the platform.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
This platform's been around for a long, long time, and it's went through a lot of different changes. And right now, as of October 2022, when we're talking, this this new algorithm shift that's out is changing the game for not just Facebook, but for Instagram and all of the platforms. And that is that it's going the route of TikTok. So TikTok obviously is huge. and only getting huger, and it's a big deal. And these other platforms are kind of shivering in their boots. So they have changed their algorithm now to match the way of TikTok, which is the interest graph versus the social graph. So the interest graph is based on things that you like and watch. So videos that you're watching are interesting to you, and they bring that into your feed. And they do it almost immediately. Well, Facebook and we'll call it Meta, but Facebook and Instagram, Meta has always been the social graph route, where it's more friends, family, people you know, and that type of content being brought into your feed. And which is why when you're in your Facebook page as your own person, you're seeing, not your business, I mean, you're on your personal Facebook page, you see some of the same content pop back up to the top of your feed repeatedly from the same people posting it. Even though that post might be a week old, it's still showing up in the feed. That they're getting away from that. They're starting to shift now to the interest graph, where it's more video based and it's heavy on stories and reels. And that's why stories and reels show up at the top of your Facebook feed now. When you're on your phone and you're looking, both those buttons are right at the top. And they're going the route of messaging. They want people to find these videos, message them to their friends and family, and share them, and then get people, friends and family, to go in that same rabbit hole and start watching all the videos. But
it is a rabbit hole.
It's a rabbit hole, right? And that's based
they
on
want you on that platform 24/7. That's why. Then that's what I don't think people realize is the manipulation and the psychology behind it is intense. I mean, you get a dopamine hit every time you are seeing that cute little kitty come across the screen. And when you're bored during your day, or you're feeling bad about something, what do? You pick up your phone to get that dopamine hit again. And it's like, that's on purpose, people.
Yeah, that's right. So how does a business play into that? And that's a great segue into my next point. Is every every business now, every brand has to be a media company first. You have to create content and entertain people to get them to listen to you and watch you, and to get the algorithm to show you. So going to your original question, Jill, where you asked about Facebook and why they're seemingly dropping off, is because people haven't shifted to match what they're trying to accomplish. As soon as you start creating content that is entertaining and fun and engaging and relevant for your brand, and people start watching it, watch what happens with the algorithm shift. And so this is what we're talking with our clients about, is like, how can you be a media company? How can you work more on creating video and creating fun content that gets people to watch it? And I don't care how boring your industry is. You can be in the most boring of boring industries, but if you find a way to make it entertaining, you're going to maximize not just the algorithm's reach, but you're going to maximize your customer and brand reach and get more business in the long run from it. And that's it. That's Facebook, that's Instagram, that's TikTok. But coming up with a storytelling / creative methodology for your company, whatever that looks like for you, is the way to maximize and answer all of these questions.
Well, here's the good news about that. And thank you for the shift of perspective. If you now know that it is more about the content than the algorithm, it's back in your control.
Right.
Which is the good news. We can know more. Well, the algorithm, I can't beat it. You know what I mean? So you're right. The platform has shifted, and we just haven't adapted. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. And you take data off of that, and you use that data to manipulate how you create your content moving forward. So you create 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces of content. You see which one works the best. You take the 2 or 3 that don't work at all, and you scrap them. What I mean by scrap them is you don't do another video like those. You double down on the ones that do work, and then you do 10 of those type. And if 5 of them don't work, great. You figure out what the difference is. You get rid of those, and you keep optimizing your content as you put it out, so that 6 months, a year from now, you're putting out the best content you can put out for your company, and the algorithm's loving it, and it's reaching tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people. And then executing ads against that. That's the other thing that people forget about, is like, well, everybody's so bent on everything being either or. Like, they can't get out of their own way and figure out that things are and. You can do 2 things at the same time. You can do organic content, meaning free, and you can do paid content, and you can do them for separate purposes, for separate reasons, and reaching different audiences. And what people should be doing, brands should be doing, is creating this content like I just described, figuring out what works, and then taking the couple videos that are killing it, then put ad dollars on those videos and pour gas on the fire. Instead, what companies are doing is they're creating lackluster content and trying to pour gas on the fire, and those dollars are just going down the drain. The gas doesn't light. It's just pouring straight through, right down the drain, and it's not catching.
So it comes down to quality over quantity every single time, which is kind of another thing I harp on my clients about, and beta testing, and how the other thing I think people don't like to hear right away out of the gate is, well, a lot of marketing is trial and error. And it is. And they expect people like us to have the exact answers, and we always don't. Sometimes we do because we've worked in that industry or we've seen what works, but there's a lot of times where marketing is just trial and error. And this is why immediate gratification doesn't work in business. You have to be in it for the long term, and you have to realize that, like I said, there's going to be beta testing, there's going to be trial and error. We're going to have to narrow down and get to that quality piece over that quantity piece to really figure out what's working. So I'm glad you brought all that up too, because and it just strengthens my message that I'm always saying. So
right. And one other point on that, when you say quality over quantity, in the general sense, yes, you want quality. But again, it comes down, and I'm not throwing you under the bus here. I'm saying, like, this is how everybody kind of has been brought up to think in the world and everything, right? It's or. So you're thinking quality or quantity, but you can have both.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. You can do both. So we recommend throwing out a ton of content, doing a lot of quality content, but doing it at scale, putting out content at scale. And by what I mean by that is putting out 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pieces a day across different platforms, and then finding what works from that. Because when you're putting out one piece of content a week, you'll never figure out whether it's quantity or quality, right? You don't have a big enough sample size to know what's going on.
Don't take that literally, people. I did not mean one piece of content.
No, I know. I didn't. Yeah, I'm not talking about that.
But here's the thing, though.
But that's what businesses are doing.
People latch on to what fits within their comfort zone. And that's another thing that I'm seeing business owners struggle with. That's like, oh, well, everybody likes reels, and so I'm just going to create a massive amount of reels, but I'm not putting a cover on my reels. So now people have to watch it to know what it's about versus being able to see exactly what it's about. Just small things like that. But right. people take the advice that fits within their comfort zone. And that does you a huge disservice as a business owner, in my opinion, if you're going at it alone. But that's another story for another day, I guess. So to wrap it up, any last thoughts, Dan?
Well, yes, I think that the biggest thing that business owners can do for themselves right now is educate themselves, spend 10, 20 hours reading and learning everything they can about social media, the algorithms, what the changes are, how things, what they're looking for, what are these platforms looking for from brands, and then executing on all of it. But we know that they're not going to do that. They're not going to go put in 10, 20 hours of educational time. They don't have 10 to 20 hours to put in, or at least they perceive that they don't, right? Because they're working 60 hours, 70 hours a week on their business. So the other thing that they should do is find some experts. And yeah, this is a bit of a commercial for you and me in this case, because I don't like to do that. I don't like to say, hey, hire us. But we're seeing, after 10 years of being in this industry now, social media marketing, that brands are just not going to do it themselves. Most companies are not going to do it themselves, and they need the help. And in this economy, the way it is right now, and the way things are going, to spend a little bit of money every month to have a brand help, or to have a business help your brand, like you or me, is almost critical. There's just too many mistakes that can be made. And when I say mistakes, I don't mean like really bad mistakes or anything that's going to damage your brand necessarily, but you're just not getting the progress that you could be getting because you don't have the help in that corner. And you can't hire somebody full-time to come on staff and do it because that's too expensive.
Yeah.
But you don't have the extra 1 to 2 hours a day that you really need to do it right. And in most cases, a lot of the business owners are the age that they didn't grow up with things like TikTok and Reels, and they don't know how to do it, and they don't want to do it, and so on and so forth, but they know they need to do it.
Yeah.
So invest in your marketing is my point, whether it's through you, me, some other ad agency, I don't care, but invest in marketing.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It's becoming an absolute full-time job. And like you said, the great thing about outsourcing, we're a write-off for your business.
Hey, there you go.
That's what I always like to remind people. That's the silver lining. There you go. You think I'm expensive? Well, I'm a write-off. That employee you need to hire to do the same thing, not so much. Well, Dan, thank you so much. I always enjoy our conversations. I'm so happy that I was able to reach out to you, and you were a yes and just willing to come on and share all your knowledge.
Anytime.
I always learn so much from you, so I totally appreciate you. Listeners, again, Dan Petersen of Flip Switch Social Media. Follow him on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. You're on all of them. You're on all of them.
I am.
You walk the walk. So that's what we love about Dan. And if you have more questions and you want us to cover, please let us know. But give this episode a like, a follow. We truly appreciate you listening. And Dan, thank you again for your time.
Thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to my